Welcome to the Machine Learning Pioneers interview series presented by Microsoft. My name is Xiaopeng, and I lead Cloud AI Go-to-Market in Microsoft Norway. In this 4-episode interview series, we will meet some of the brilliant minds who are pioneering in the machine learning space in Norway and making massive impact in their respective industry. In this episode, we have Jørn Mjøster from the Norwegian Post, or better known as Posten or Brain. So let's get started. Jørn, can you say a few words about yourself?
Yes, thank you for the introduction. My name, as I said, is Jørn Mjøster, and my role now is Head of Data Science in Norway Post. Formerly, I actually was leading the architect group in the Norway Post and was the enterprise architect for that. And I have also in Norway Post been heading the department for new technology. And that is actually where we started with AI and machine learning a few years ago, together with Microsoft. I have actually been working with business intelligence since the early 90s, had a couple of years now, the last century, with more enterprise architecture before I now am back into machine learning space and data science again. So that is kind of my work career. And on my personal plan, I really love outdoors activities.
Yeah. Cool. That's good to know. I'm a foreigner here in Norway, and for me, living in Norway also really sort of forced me to get more sporty, so to speak. So in the winter now, I also enjoy being on the slope, and when it gets warmer, I also enjoy hiking and camping myself. So I think especially during these difficult times, it's important to get out there. All right, so let's get back to your work at the Posten. You mentioned that you are the head of data science in Posten. So can you say a few words about your team and how does your day-to-day work look like?
Yeah, I would say that my role is more on the functional side, since I've been working with this area and business intelligence for a long time. But my team consists of core data scientists, which actually has the deep knowledge of programming, creating algorithms, and that kind of stuff. So my work is more of giving them work to do, working together with business to get the best business opportunities. What should we actually work on, and making sure that they have everything they need to be capable of creating their tasks, to creating the great algorithms. And if we need other competences, if we need resources, making sure that Microsoft has everything available for us, talking to Microsoft. And that's kind of what is my kind of work on this. And of course, the other really bad part about everything is GDPR, which we have to consider every day. What can we actually do? What are we allowed to do? And that is also part of what is my role in the work of the data science in Posten.
Yeah, makes sense. So it sounds like you're not only leading the team, but also being the connection between your team and also the rest of the organization when it comes to compliance and also competence, business requirement, etc. Right?
Yeah, so that's work a lot on that side to make sure that we actually are working on the right tasks to get the business involved. It's a large company. You need to have business involved. You need to sell the kind of work to business to make them understand how this is actually changing it, what kind of impact we can do with machine learning. And actually that it's nothing to be afraid of. It's not going to take your job. It's only going to take your boring part of your jobs.
Makes sense. Actually, we have another machine learning pioneer who will also appear in this interview series. And he mentioned that, machine learning is the tool for solving business problem. I think you're quite aligned from that angle. Yeah. So the next one, let's go back a little bit, to your personal experience. So how did you start it, working with the machine learning? How did your journey begin?
I think kind of my journey began even early in the 90s, working actually with business intelligence. Because I think that we have actually just evolved from the 90s to get more and more complicated. It gets more and more complex. We get more and more tools. We get the possibility to create better algorithms, and we now have the possibility to actually make the machine take the decision. And that was kind of the things that we didn't have in the 90s. We had kind of have the same problems, but now we're actually capable of using the machines in a much better way. And if you go back to Posten and the journey in Posten, how did we actually start with machine learning and data science in Posten? that's actually something that we could say thank you to Microsoft before. So because 2 years ago, approximately, Microsoft came to us and say, okay, don't you want to do some machine learning? Do you want to test something? I have a team. They can work together with you on something else. So what we did was we created a hackathon, 2 weeks together with Microsoft, working on our data to see what could we actually create out of the data. How could we actually work with this? And working together with Microsoft on Azure platform actually led us to that, oh, we have some competence. We have data scientists inside our company that actually knows how to do this. And oh, we have a platform available that we can work on. So that's actually kind of how it started. And during that part, and during that time, we actually got the problem from business that we saw, this is a perfect machine learning problem. Okay, let's start on that one. Let's see if we could create that algorithm that actually solves this problem. That problem that came to us with was to see, we have customers that say, can't you tell us more precisely when a parcels arrive at a pickup point? We want to have it on a perfect day, on this exact day and the time frame within 2 hours. Yeah, that could be possible to do. So that was kind of how we started, and actually how we got started and make the company aware of what actually data science could do.
That's such a cool story to share. I think, based on our work with different customers, we know that, some customers, they start from the business side. It's they sort of start to think about, okay, we want to go into this digital transformation journey, and for that we want to enhance customer experience. We want to optimize operations, and then they start to think about, okay, so maybe we want to apply AI and machine learning to enable that. And then they realize, okay, actually, we don't have the data foundation in place. And then they start to work on a data platform. But it sounds like you guys choose the, let's say, the more smooth path, where you started by establishing that data foundation. And then you can leverage that data assets to apply machine learning to that to actually solve business problem. Would that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's correct. And I think that's, in my opinion, that's the only way that's actually possible to do this. Otherwise, if you start on the platform side, you will actually spend years trying to build the platform, trying to build the data and the data quality you need. So in my opinion, we need to start with the small business problems that we actually have possible to solve. The business problem I mentioned, we solved within 6 weeks. So, and that is actually how you show that you can actually gain value of it. And based on that, you can build the platform. You can start building on that to create even more. And because otherwise you'll end up in a project that takes years just to build a platform and no one gets any value out of it. So I think you have to prove value over time. I think that's important.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm thinking, sometimes people discuss, sort of building horizontal capability versus vertical solutions. And I think, you really actually need to go, hand in hand, because when you build horizontal capabilities, you need to be based on the needs coming from the vertical solutions, so to speak. So I think the balance is really the point here, which you also elaborated.
Yeah, I think that's the balance is important. And that's also where I come from the enterprise architecture side, saying that, okay, but we build a platform that we can build on, not making a silo for this isolated problem. We're building something that we can extend to the next problem.
Exactly. And that's where your experience from the architecture side would definitely help. But I'm actually also curious about your experience shifting the focus from BI to AI. Because before starting working with machine learning, you have had quite some years working in the BI space. So what would you say are the main similarities and differences when it comes to implementing BI versus AI?
Oh, I think that you're just doing more comprehensive work. You're doing more detailed algorithms. You can get better results out of it. And it's based on that you have machines that now are capable of doing more. And I think that one of the biggest issues is that the machine can compare much more data than the human brain can, which means that you have now the possibility of actually comparing a lot more data before you actually take a decision. And with BI, you get a result, you get a report, take a decision based on this one. With AI, you get a solution, you get a recommendation on either on what to do, or you actually, with complete machine learning or decision making, you actually let the machine do the decision for you, which was not possible to do earlier because you didn't have you didn't kind of have the competence, you didn't have the tools, so you just needed the human aspect as before in much more way than you do now. Now you can actually let the machine take a lot of the decisions for you. But this also requires much better data quality. And also you need to make sure that the machine follows the ethical kind of rules and the GDPR kind of rules. So so it's a new set of rules that you also need to consider into this space with going more and more into artificial intelligence and making the machine taking more and more of your decisions and or recommendations. So I think that's the biggest shift for me.
Yeah, I love the points you made on the ethical and responsible part of doing machine learning. Because actually, from Microsoft point of view, since we are creating products which are used by so many organizations around the world to work with AI and machine learning, so it's actually one of the most important focus for us to have the principles, to have the framework, and also tooling to enable responsible machine learning. We actually have a new tool set on Azure called Responsible ML. I don't know if you heard about that, but that's something for you to look into, definitely.
I heard about it. I've looked into it.
Perfect. So I'm wondering, for Posten, you mentioned that you started a journey around machine learning and AI a few years ago. And can you mention, when did you started this journey, and what has been the focus so far, since you started this journey?
I think that we kind of have two set of journeys in Posten when it comes to this one. The one is kind of my journey and my department and how we are working on it. And because in my journey, our focus is to create better customer experience and a competitive advantage on the customer side, on giving better services to our customers, either if you receive a parcel or if you're shipping a parcel. That's kind of the aspect and what we've been working a lot on in my department. And I would say that we kind of started 2 years ago. But I mean, as a big logistic provider, we have been using route optimization, those kind of tools, and production optimizing tools for a long time. And a lot of those tools has some kind of machine learning, some kind of artificial intelligence inside, and has had that for a long time. So we've kind of been using tools that has this inside for a long time in Posten, but not on a big way and actually focusing on, oh, this is actually artificial intelligence. So it's kind of two kind of journeys. And we also are working a lot with RPA and chatbots as well. So we kind of have, those tools are also that, but as for now, or I would say that our RPA and chatbots are quite dumb. They don't use any kind of machine learning. They don't use artificial intelligence today. Hopefully we'll be better on that in a few years as well. But they solve a lot of business problems, even though they are, because a lot of business problems are easy to solve and can actually just be programmed into the tool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're touching upon some really important aspect. I mean, by the end of the day, technology is only a tool, right? I mean, whatever solves the problem is a good technology, right? It's not really about the complexity or how much data we need to feed into the model at the end of the day. You also mentioned that, two things that you see as benefits of using machine learning. One thing is to enhance customer experience. The other is to, really create competitive advantages at Posten. Can you elaborate on those?
Yeah, I think that is what kind of is the focus in my department and what we are doing, and that is trying to introduce new services into the market, or maybe not new services, but improving existing services by giving better information either to a customer that's going to receive something or to the ones shipping something. So by giving people earlier information about when they actually can expect to receive something, they can actually plan their day based on that. So that means that actually the plumber or the electrician can actually plan his day based on, okay, I expect that Posten will deliver this spare part on this between 12 and 1 o'clock on Tuesday. Okay, so then I don't have to be in that place before that time because I cannot work before that time. So that gives them the possibility to either work on a different project until 12 or work with something else until then, because that's the time when they receive what they actually are going to use. So that's kind of the business problem for those people. And it's kind of the same thing when it comes to me as a receiver. if I'm going to have a new skiing jacket and I'm going skiing this weekend, okay, we're going to actually pick it up. I'm leaving right from the office. Will it be in the pickup point close to my office before I leave? Or maybe I should pick it up where actually at the skiing location. So that means that I have the opportunity to actually see when it will be at those different places. And of course, the opening hours of the pickup locations as well, so that I can say, oh, yeah, it will be in Hemsedal by 5 o'clock on Friday, and the pickup point is open to 10. So, oh, I pass it on the way. So why don't I just stop there to pick it up instead of actually waiting for it somewhere else? So that's kind of giving me as a receiver a better opportunities to choose where I want to pick up things. Then how this, so that's the customer experience part on it. And the competitive advantage is actually to be the first provider of these kind of services in the market. And machine learning is helping us on this because that's taking care of whenever we have seasonality, we have a lot of sometimes we have higher volumes, so things takes a little bit longer time. Sometimes we do things differently. So using machine learning, we automatically adapt to all of those changes during the season, instead of having someone actually trying to program that in and saying, oh, no, first week of December, maybe be a bit late. So now we actually have the machine telling us that instead, and that gives a much better precision.
Yeah, that's very intriguing. Actually, I remember there was a study from McKinsey a few years ago talking about the fact that customer experience actually is the most important competitive advantage for many companies right now. So I think the 2 points you elaborated are really intertwined and connected with each other. So one thing I'm also curious to learn from you is that what do you see as the main benefits of doing machine learning on the cloud? And also, how's your experience, working with the machine learning on Azure so far?
I would say that everything. No, I would say we have tried machine learning on premise as well. It didn't work, and I think that the biggest benefit is actually the kind of cloud services, which actually gives you the possibility to easy set up what you need, easy use what you need, and availability to have large scale, small scale, scale thing up and down, and it's 2 buttons click, and then you have actually what you need. I think that's actually the biggest advantage, instead of actually having to try to say, oh, you need to install this, and I need to install this, and then in a data center, I need to hire someone every time I need to install it. So I think that's kind of one of the huge benefits of having this in the cloud. And the other really big benefit of using the cloud on this one is that this is a market, this is things that actually changes. You have updates at least every week, sometimes even oftener. If I'm going to have someone updating this inside my data center, it's not going to work. So we have used mainly this as software as a service. So I'm updated all the time. I have the newest technology. I have everything available. So I think that's actually the really big benefit, besides that actually can scale things up and down. For example, the best example of that is actually Databricks. Databricks is really quite costly to use, but it's not costly. It's not costly when I can have a large scale implementation just for the hour or 5 minutes when I need it, because that doesn't cost that much. If I should have that 365 days a year, that would be costly. But that means that we can actually use the good technology when we need it and have the speed that we need using the cloud and the opportunities that are in the cloud. So I think that's actually the really good thing about having the cloud. Then if I'm going to say the really bad thing about the cloud is that you have everything available. And someone always says that this tool solves the problem, this solves the problem, and trying to figure out what actually solves the problem and how should we actually do things. So that's kind of the issue you get, because you have so many tools, you have so many tool sets, you have so many possibilities. So you need to do chooses, so something to use, work on. And that is maybe, that's kind of the drawback on being on the cloud.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, having such a broad spectrum of tooling sometimes making it even more difficult to choose from. But then obviously, we are here to help. I mean, your friends at Microsoft will always be happy to advise you, on the choices as well.
Yeah.
And one thing that you didn't touch upon, but I think it's worth mentioning is also the collaboration side of things. Because I think when I worked with data science in teams, there were experiences where individual data scientists work on machine learning project on their laptops. And that doesn't really foster a collaborative environment, right? Because data science is also a team sport. I mean, you have to combine different competencies, and then working in a collaborative cloud-based environment, I think that would foster that type of culture and practice.
Absolutely, and everyone works on notebooks and virtual machines, and so it's a lot of things, and and we have Microsoft. You can always ask your questions, you get answers, you find everything. You have some kind of discussion channels and so on. So it's not hard to find the answers, but you also sometimes doesn't really get the right answers. So and what you end up with is this tool. Oh, it solves the problem if you're quite small. If you're going to have a large problem, you need to program it in anyway. So that's kind of some of the issues by working on tools, that sometimes you see that it's going to get too complex inside the tool, so I need actually to program it instead.
Makes sense. So I do have one last question from my side. So in this initiative we have really handpicked 4 pioneers in the machine learning space that's really making impact in the Norwegian market. And obviously you are being one of those. So I want to ask you, what does it mean to you to be a machine learning pioneer?
It's quite hard to answer that. I'm quite proud of being chosen to be one of the 4 in this market from Microsoft side. And I guess that we are working on this, and what we think and trying to be is kind of an early adopter of the new technology, at least in our market space. Could be others using it in other market space, but trying to be the first, trying to be the one that got out with this kind of technology, using the technology to maybe be a game changer in our market. I think that's an important aspect of what we are doing. And I think that especially what we did in the B2B market, with being precise, giving the time already at the checkout point, is what, like business said, this is actually going to be a game changer in the Norwegian market for this. So I think, then being a part of this program for Microsoft is also giving us an opportunity to tell a lot about what are we actually doing as a company. Why should actually Post and Bring still be considered to be one of the most innovative companies in Norway? I mean, for the last 2 years, we have been number 1 and 2 on the Infomag competition on being the most innovative companies. I think that is an important aspect for us, because this is actually showing also what we are working on and showing off that we are actually a pioneer or an early adapter of this kind of technology. So I think that's an important part for us.
Absolutely. And I personally learned so much more about Post and Bring in this conversation, because obviously as a consumer, I only know them by brands, and I sometimes interact with your delivery stuff. But I never know the innovation happening behind the scene. So today I think with this conversation we actually bring that to the light and to a broader audience as well. So I'm so happy that you joined us today to have this conversation. And I actually share the story from not only from a personal point of view, but also from a organizational point of view. All right, so let's wrap up the conversation. And thank you again, Göran, for joining. And thank you everyone for watching this episode. I hope to see you again in other episodes. All right,
thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.